Welcome to Macmo Academy. Dear students, in this video we will understand the topic quadratic equations, and the method that we follow is completing the square method. So basically what is mean by quadratic equations? For example, and we will cover it with only one variable. For example, if you have an equation 4x plus 1 is equals to 6. So is this quadratic? No, it is linear equation, as the degree of the variable or the degree of the equation or the maximum power of the variable is 1. Maximum power of variable is 1. So this is called linear equation. As you know already about this thing. But if you have the same equation, but you have the highest power is equals to 2. So this equation is called quadratic equation. This is not the standard form of it, but this equation is called quadratic. But if we have the same equation like this, now this becomes power 3, so it is cubic. Power 3, so highest power is 3, so it is cubic. So if the highest power is 1, we call it linear equation. If it is 2, we call it quadratic equation. If it is 3, we call it cubic equation. And then there are more equations as well, in which there will be more power or the greater power than 3. But here we are discussing only quadratic equations, means the power with variable of power 2. So in this one, first of all, what are the SLOs? If you talk about the SLOs, so first one is distinguish between quadratic equations and other equations. We have understood that in quadratic equations we have power of the or the degree of the variable or the equation is 2 plus 2, and then we need to do how to convert a given quadratic equation into standard form. Now what is the standard form of the quadratic equation? The standard form of quadratic equation is this: ax square plus bx plus c is equals to 0. And it is very simple that whatever the equation is given to you, you need to simplify it, and you should put all the things on the left side of the equation, and on the right side there must be equals to 0. So this particular form of the equation is called standard form of the quadratic equation. But remember, here a must not be equals to 0. B could be 0, C could be 0, but A must not be equals to 0. Why? Because if the coefficient of x square becomes 0, the whole x square term will be eliminated and it will not remain a quadratic equation, it will become a linear equation. But if it is okay that if this B will become 0 or this C will become 0, still it will be counted as quadratic equation, but this is the standard form of the quadratic equations. First SLO or first main thing that we need to understand is how to convert an equation into standard form of a quadratic equation. So let's see the question related to it first. So let's say we have an equation x plus 2, x plus 3 is equals to 4, and we have to convert it into standard form of quadratic equation. So first step that we will do is opening the brackets. Opening the bracket means multiply this with this, it will come x square. Multiply this with this, it will become 3x, and then 2x, and then 6. It will become x square plus 5x plus 6. And according to the standard form on the right side, there must be 0. So we move this 4 over here. It will become minus 4. So this is your standard form of this quadratic equation, where a is equals to 1, b is equals to 5, and c equals to 2. Let's take one more example. We have an example x bracket x plus 5 is equals to 3x minus 1. So let's multiply it. It will come x multiplied by x square, x multiplied by 5x. Again, you can move these two over here. So it will come x square plus 5x minus 3x plus 1 equals to 0. Now it comes in the standard form. Now what is the value of a? 1. The value of b is 2. And the value of c is 1. So this is how we convert our equation into standard quadratic equation. And now as it is written over there, quadratic equation completing the square method. So to solve the quadratic equations, we have three methods in our SLOs. First one is factorization method, and then completing the square method, and then quadratic formula. So in this video, we will only understand the completing the square method, and later on in other videos, we will discuss factorization method as well as quadratic formula. So let's discuss completing the square method by taking a question. So before doing a question, let's understand generally what is the procedure of using the completing the square method. So in step 1, what you need to check, and then in step 2, and then in step 3. So for in the first step, you need to check that your equation should be in the standard form. If it is not, you have to convert it. And mostly in the questions they ask you to convert it, it is not already in the standard form. This must be your step 1, or this will be your checkpoint, that is it in this form or not. And then in step 2, after converting into standard form ax square plus bx plus c, what you need to do in the next step, you need to make the coefficient of x square equal to 1. This is very important thing. In the next step, when you are doing completing the square method, if your coefficient of x square means a is not equals to 1, you have to make it. For example, if it is written 4x square plus 3x minus 1 equals to 0, then you need to divide your whole equation by 4 so that the coefficient of x square will become 1. So this is the main step. So make coefficient of x square equal to 1. Now in the third step, you have to move the constant to the right side in step number 3. And if you will remember this step, you can easily do any question with this method. So what you need to do in the third step after doing this thing, move your constant on the right side. Move constant term means c on right side of the equation. And then in step 4, this is very important step. In step number 4, what you need to do, you need to add when we will do the question now. So we will discuss all these steps again. Add half the coefficient of x, half the coefficient of x, and then its square, means you need to add half the coefficient of x, means b upon 2 square. For example, if the coefficient of x is 3, so you have to add 3 upon 2 whole square on both sides of the equation. Because if you remember that in mathematics, we are not allowed to do a particular operation by ourselves on one side. If you want to balance the equation, you have to do it on both sides of the equation. So on both sides. So whatever the coefficient of x, you have to half it, means divide by 2, and then put a square on it and then add it on both sides of the equation. By doing this, what will happen, that your when you will do this thing now, half of the equation of x square on both sides after adding it, so it will become, the left hand side becomes a perfect square. Left hand side becomes a perfect square. Left side becomes a perfect square. And then in the last step you will, and why I'm mentioning these steps separately, because the students forgot these steps. That's why it is important to remember it. In step number 6, or in the final step, you will take the square root on both sides, and then you will be able to easily calculate x or find x. So these are the steps that you have to follow in solving the quadratic equation by using completing the square method. Now let's take an example to apply these steps on the question. So we have an equation, let's say 2x square minus 4x minus 6 equals to 0. We have a question, solve 2x square minus 4x minus 6 equals to 0. So it is already in the standard form, you don't need to do it again. It is already, step 1 is already done. If it is not, we can do it, we have already discussed. Now the next step says make the coefficient of x square equal to 1. If it is already only x square written over here, then it is already done, but it is not over here. So we need to divide our equation by 2. And dividing the equation by 2 means that all the terms will be divided by 2, and you know 0 upon 2 is 0. So it will become x square minus 2x minus 3 equals to 0. Step number 2 done. Now in step number 3, you need to move the constant term on the right side. Let's do it. X square minus 2x equals to 3. Done. Now in the step number 4, you need to add half of the coefficient of x. What is the coefficient of x right now? Right now it is 2. So what is the half of 2? 1. Right now the coefficient of x is 2, and half of 2 means 1, and 1 square is 1. 1 square is 1. So you need to add 1 on both sides of the same equation. X square minus 2x plus 1 is equals to 3 plus 1. So you can calculate this thing on the rough work column or rough working. So you will get, now if you look at these three terms, step 4 done. Now in step 5 it is written left side as perfect square. So you can see over here we have an identity a square minus 2ab plus b square. You can apply that identity. I am showing you over here. So you can see over here it is applicable. What this thing equals to, x minus 1 whole square, x minus 1 whole square. So instead of this you will write it as a perfect square, x minus 1 whole square equals to 4. Now it is written, step 5 done. Now it is written find the square root on both sides. So when you will do square root on both sides, you must know that whenever you apply on square root on a number, it will open with plus as well as minus. Okay, x minus 1 is equals to plus minus 4. Now when you want to solve it, you have to solve it one time with plus 4 and one time with minus 4. So x minus 1 is equals to 4. you will get x is equals to 5, one value of x, and the second one is x minus 1 equals to minus 4, so you will get x is equals to minus 3, second value of x. Why are we getting two answers? Because remember, in the quadratic equation we will always get two roots or two answers or two values of x. It could be repeating as well. We will see this thing as well in our next method of the quadratic equation, that not every time we will get two different answers. Sometimes the equation will be like that, that the answer is repeating, or maybe the answer is an imaginary answer. So we will discuss that when we will do the quadratic formula. But right now, what have we done in completing the square method? That first of all, our equation should be in the standard form: ax square plus bx plus c equals to 0. Signs could be different, but the form should remain same. And then the coefficient of x square should be equal to 1. That's what we have done. And then move constant on the right side. We have done that. And then add half of the coefficient of x square on both sides. So you can see over here, the coefficient of x is 2 and its half is 1 and its square is also 1, so we will add 1 on both sides. So you can do this calculation separately and then you will add whatever the answer is coming on both sides. And don't worry about it, it could come in the fraction as well. Whatever it is coming, you just need to add it on the both sides of the equation. And then you will get a situation like that, in which on your left hand side this particular identity is applicable: a square plus minus 2ab plus b square, and you know that it is equals to a plus minus b whole square. And after applying the perfect square identity, you will apply a square root on both sides. By doing it, the square will cancel, and remember, you will open it with plus minus whatever is coming, mainly the number written over here. There is no variable over here on the right side, so you will always get a number. It could be fraction, but it will be a number only. And then plus minus, and then when you once you will solve it with plus and then with minus, you will get two answers of the quadratic equation. This is how completing square method works to solve the quadratic equation. Hope you have understood the concept. If you have any query, you can ask us, and in our next video we will discuss the other two methods of solving quadratic equations. Thank you for watching the video, and don't forget to subscribe our channel.